In the last episode, we went to Hebron, Nazareth, and Haifa. In this episode, we went to Qumran, Dead Sea, and Jaffa Old City. Let's get started after the intro. This is Qumran National Park, a quiet stretch of desert ruins that unexpectedly reshaped our understanding of the Bible's textual history. In 1947, in caves along these cliffs, a Bedouin shepherd made an accidental discovery. Inside clay jars were ancient scrolls, texts that would later become known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. They include some of the earliest known copies of the Hebrew Bible ever found. Today, the original manuscripts are preserved in a museum in Jerusalem. But the place where they were discovered is right here. Qumran was once home to a Jewish sect, often associated with a group known as the Essenes. Many scholars believe this community may have been connected to the writing or preservation of the scrolls. Among the ruins is what is often identified as a scribe's room or scriptorium. Archaeologists discovered inkwells and writing tables here, suggesting that religious texts may have been copied on this very site. Nearby are several ritual baths, mikvot, used for ceremonial purification. For this community, ritual cleanliness appears to have been central to daily life. Perhaps most remarkable is the sophisticated water system. In one of the driest places on Earth, they built channels and large reservoirs to collect rainwater. Survival in the desert required planning, discipline, and cooperation. And in the caves above, the scroll caves, the manuscripts were hidden in clay jars, possibly to protect them during times of conflict. Ironically, it was the extreme dryness of the desert that preserved them for nearly 2,000 years. From Qumran, the road continues south along the Dead Sea, into another desert landscape, Gedi. The name Gedi roughly means spring of the young goat, or spring of the Ibex. It refers to the wild goats that still roam these cliffs today. The Ibex here, the Nubian Ibex, are incredibly well adapted to this terrain. With curved horns and remarkable balance, they move effortlessly across near vertical rock faces. In a place that looks almost uninhabitable, they seem completely at home. Gedi is not just a nature reserve. It also appears in the Bible. According to the book of Samuel, this is where David hid from King Saul. In the caves above these cliffs, David is said to have spared Saul's life, choosing restraint instead of revenge. Whether one reads it as history or as sacred narrative, Gedi becomes a setting of tension, survival, and moral decision. What makes Gedi remarkable is that it is an oasis. Fresh water flows here in the middle of one of the driest regions on Earth. Where there is water, there is life. Date palms grow. Animals gather. And for thousands of years, humans stopped here too. And yet today, parts of Gedi feel quiet, almost abandoned. Some of the shops and facilities appear closed. Tourism in this region has fluctuated over the years, affected by economics, regional tensions, and environmental change. The Dead Sea itself has been shrinking for decades, reshaping the landscape and local industry. The Dead Sea is the lowest point on Earth. Its salt concentration is extremely high, and almost no life can survive in it. Yet for humans, it has become a symbol of healing and relaxation. People float effortlessly on the surface, cover themselves in mineral-rich mud, and turn a barren landscape into a holiday destination. In Israel, along the Dead Sea, there are not only paid resort beaches, but also public beaches open to everyone, including the one we are visiting now. These beaches are free to enter, and provide basic facilities, such as changing rooms and showers, for travelers who are not staying at a hotel. This is a convenient and more affordable option. Many people wonder, in a country often associated with strong religious traditions, would beachwear be more conservative? But here in the southern Dead Sea resort area, the atmosphere is actually very relaxed. Bikinis, swim trunks, and sunbathing are common sights. Interestingly, just across the water lies Jordan. Yet the beach culture and dress customs on the two sides are noticeably different. The same body of water, but a very different social atmosphere. Next to the beach, there are also small shopping areas. Besides swimwear and beach supplies, you can find a wide range of Dead Sea mineral products, mud masks, salt scrubs, and other skincare items. The minerals of the Dead Sea have long become a global brand of their own. This is Ain Bokek, the main tourist district at the southern end of the Dead Sea. Rows of hotels line the shoreline, with lawns, umbrellas, and people enjoying the sun. It is hard to imagine that this is still technically part of the desert. You might have heard of Dead Sea therapy. But does Dead Sea therapy have clinical evidence? From an evidence-based medicine perspective, there is moderate-quality clinical evidence supporting its use in psoriasis. Several prospective cohort studies have demonstrated that after 3 to 4 weeks of structured Dead Sea climatotherapy, consisting of controlled natural sun exposure combined with mineral bathing, patients experience a mean reduction in PASI, psoriasis area and severity index, of approximately 70% to 90%. In some studies, more than 70% of patients achieved PASI 75, and complete clearance rates ranged from 40% to 50%. Remission typically lasts several months, although permanent remission is uncommon. It should be noted that most available data derive from observational or prospective cohort studies rather than large randomized controlled trials. Therefore, the overall level of evidence is considered moderate rather than high. Mechanistically, the Dead Sea lies approximately 400 meters below sea level. The low altitude modifies ultraviolet radiation transmission and spectral distribution in the atmosphere. Dead Sea therapy is best classified as natural sunlight-based climatotherapy, rather than narrowband UVB phototherapy. Under medical supervision, controlled sun exposure can induce immunomodulatory effects similar in principle to phototherapy, although the light source is fundamentally different. Mineral bathing in mud application may provide adjunctive anti-inflammatory or barrier-enhancing benefits, but they are not considered the primary therapeutic mechanism. Regarding clinical guidelines, the German S3 psoriasis guideline lists climatotherapy as a treatment option that may be considered within an integrated therapeutic approach. The American Academy of Dermatology National Psoriasis Foundation guidelines include climatotherapy within the discussion of phototherapy modalities but do not recommend it as first-line standard therapy. For atopic dermatitis, smaller studies suggest short-term improvement. However, the strength of evidence is substantially weaker compared to psoriasis. In summary, Dead Sea therapy is neither a miracle cure nor an unscientific myth. It represents a natural sunlight-based climatotherapy supported by moderate-quality clinical evidence in psoriasis and may serve as an adjunctive or alternative option in selected patients. Leaving the southern Dead Sea resort area, as the road turns inland, the landscape quickly returns to dryness and open land. This is the Negev Desert. The Negev covers more than 60% of Israel's land area, roughly 13,000 square kilometers, stretching from Beersheba in the north, all the way south to the Red Sea. In fact, most of southern Israel is desert. But many people ask, what about the barren landscape east of Jerusalem? Toward Jericho? Is that also part of the Negev? Strictly speaking, it is not. That region is known as the Judean wilderness, or the Judean desert. It lies east of Jerusalem, along the northern stretch of the Dead Sea, characterized by limestone hills and deeply cut canyons. In biblical narratives, when the wilderness is mentioned, it often refers to this area. There is no sharply defined line on the ground separating the two regions. However, the area around Beersheba is generally considered a transitional zone. Northward, closer to Jerusalem and the northern Dead Sea, you enter the Judean wilderness. Southward, the terrain opens up into the broader expanses of the Negev. Geologically and climatically, the two areas differ as well. The Judean wilderness is largely a rain-shadowed desert. Moist air from the Mediterranean is blocked by the central highlands, resulting in dry, eroded canyon landscapes to the east. The Negev, by contrast, lies within a more typical arid climatic zone, with lower annual rainfall, and broader plateaus, erosion craters, and dry valleys. In simple terms, the Judean wilderness is a mountainous form of barrenness, while the Negev is a vast and open desert. They are connected, yet distinct in both geography and historical context. In the Bible, David is said to have taken refuge in the wilderness of Judah. The word Negev itself, in Hebrew, originally meant the south. One represents a narrative wilderness, the other a geographical southern desert. Crossing the desert, we arrive in Beersheba. The name Beersheba is commonly translated as the Well of the Oaths, or the Well of Seven. In Hebrew, Beer means well, and Shiva can mean either seven or oath. Both meanings are rooted in the same biblical narrative. According to the book of Genesis, Abraham made a covenant here with Abimelech, a local ruler. to affirm that he had dug the well. Abraham set aside 7 lands as a witness. The place was therefore called Beersheba, the well of the oaths, or the well of 7. In a desert environment, a well was never just a source of water. It meant survival. It meant territory. It meant identity. In ancient Israelite language, there is a well-known phrase, from Dan to Beersheba. Dan marked the northern boundary, and Beersheba marked the southern limit of settled land. The phrase meant the entire territory of Israel. In other words, Beersheba represented the edge of sustainable habitation. Beyond this point lay deeper desert. In the ancient world, the extent of civilization was defined by water. Where wells could support life, people settled. Where water became unreliable, settlement stopped. Today, that boundary has shifted. Modern Israel has developed advanced water technologies, desalination, drip irrigation, and long-distance water transport systems. As a result, communities now exist far south of Beersheba, deep within the Negev Desert. In the past, geography defined the limits of habitation. Today, technology has redrawn those limits. As we drive into the shopping mall in Beersheba, the first thing we encounter is a security checkpoint. In Israel, security screening at shopping centers is a common part of everyday life. Pedestrians entering a mall are usually subject to bag inspections or asked to pass through a metal detector. Vehicles entering the parking area may also be stopped at the entrance and briefly inspected before being allowed inside. These security measures have historical and practical reasons behind them. During periods of conflict, in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, public spaces such as buses, restaurants, and shopping centers were at times targeted. As a result, security infrastructure gradually became integrated into the design of everyday public spaces. Over time, this preventive security model became normalized. Finally, it was the last day of my journey in Israel. After breakfast at the hotel, I left Jerusalem and began driving west toward Jaffa. The road connecting the two cities is Highway 1, one of the most important highways in Israel. It links Jerusalem, the country's historic and spiritual center, with Tel Aviv and the Mediterranean coast. The distance is only about 60 kilometers, and under normal traffic conditions, the drive takes roughly an hour. Yet the transition feels dramatic. Jerusalem sits on the Judean hills, at an elevation of around 800 meters above sea level. As the highway descends westward, the landscape shifts from rocky highlands to rolling plains, and eventually to the coastal region. This route is not just a modern highway. For thousands of years, variations of this road connected the inland hills to the ancient port of Jaffa. It was along this corridor that goods, pilgrims, and armies once traveled, between the coast and the highlands. Today, the journey takes less than an hour. But geographically and historically, it connects two very different worlds, Jerusalem and the sea. As the road descends from the hills toward the coast, the mountains fade and the sea comes into view. We arrive in Jaffa. Jaffa is one of the oldest port cities on the Mediterranean. Archaeological evidence suggests that human settlement here dates back at least 4,000 years. Throughout history, Egyptians, Phoenicians, Persians, Romans, Byzantines, Crusaders, and the Ottoman Empire all controlled this strategic harbor. In the Bible, the city is known as Joppa. The prophet Jonah departed from here by ship. And in the New Testament, Peter is said to have received a vision here. Jaffa repeatedly appears in both historical and religious narratives. In the modern era, Jaffa was once one of the busiest ports in the region. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, it became internationally known for its citrus exports. Jaffa oranges became a global brand, and the city was an important commercial and cultural center. In 1909, however, a new Jewish neighborhood was founded on the sand dunes north of Jaffa, the city of Tel Aviv. Over time, Tel Aviv expanded rapidly, and Jaffa was eventually incorporated into it. Today, the official name of the municipality is Tel Aviv-Yafo. Modern Jaffa is a layered space. The ancient stone alleys and ports still remain, but they are now surrounded by galleries, cafes, and design studios. It is no longer the country's primary economic harbor, yet it has become a cultural and symbolic landmark. From here, you can look out across the Mediterranean, and also see the skyline of modern Tel Aviv rising to the north. On one side stands a port city shaped by thousands of years of history. On the other, one of the most modern urban centers in the Middle East. They are part of the same city, yet they represent different eras. If Jerusalem symbolizes faith and highland history, Jaffa represents connection and departure. It has long served as both an entrance to this land and a point of departure from it. Just outside the ancient stone alleys of Old Jaffa lies a very different atmosphere. The Jaffa Flea Market. This market has existed for well over a century. During the late Ottoman period and into the British Mandate era, Jaffa was a major port city. Goods arriving by sea would circulate through local traders, and second-hand items, imports, and surplus materials gradually formed what became this flea market district. Jaffa has always been a meeting point between continents, Europe, North Africa, and the Levant. That is why, walking through the market today, you might find Cypriot-style copperware, Middle Eastern woven carpets, Ottoman-era furniture, and European antiques, sometimes all within the same shop. The presence of Cypriot copper is not accidental. Cyprus lies just across the Mediterranean, and trade routes between the island and this coast have existed for centuries. Likewise, carpets reflect the broader Middle Eastern trade networks, linking Persia and the Arab world. Jaffa's port once served as a gateway for these cultural and commercial exchanges. In the 20th century, as Tel Aviv expanded and commercial patterns shifted, the flea market declined for a time. But in recent decades, it has experienced renewal. Today, alongside traditional antique dealers, you will find boutique designers, cafes, restaurants, and contemporary art spaces beyond copper and carpets. The market is also known for vintage jewelry, old coins, handmade ceramics, Judaica items, and locally crafted souvenirs. It is less a single marketplace, and more a layered urban quarter, where trade, migration, and memory intersect. If Old Jaffa represents ancient stone and sacred history, the flea market represents circulation, objects that have traveled, changed hands, and carried stories across borders. Before entering the stone alleys of Old Jaffa, I walked toward the sea. From above, the beach below was full of people enjoying life. Some were sunbathing, others simply lying on the sand and talking. The pace felt relaxed. Looking north, you can see the skyline of Tel Aviv in the distance. This hill in front of us is the true core of Old Jaffa. It is a natural promontory overlooking the sea, projecting outward toward the harbor. Its elevated position provided both defense and control over maritime access. Archaeological excavations indicate that fortifications already existed here in the Bronze Age. In other words, more than 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, this hill was already a fortified settlement. The history of Old Jaffa is not linear. It is a history of destruction and rebuilding. In the ancient Near East, cities like this often formed what archaeologists call a tau, a mound created by layers of successive occupation. Each time a city was destroyed by war, earthquake, or conquest, new structures were built upon the remains. The streets we walk today rest on multiple historical layers beneath them. During the Crusader period, the city was heavily fortified as a coastal stronghold. Later, under Ottoman rule, much of the old city was rebuilt again. The limestone houses, vaulted ceilings, narrow alleys, and thick walls seen today largely reflect 18th and 19th century Ottoman construction. The tight urban fabric was practical. It provided shade, structural stability, and defensive advantage. In the mid-20th century, parts of the old city declined and were partially abandoned. Population shifts and political changes altered its character. Later restoration and conservation projects transformed the area into an artistic and cultural district. Many buildings have been carefully restored, meaning what we see today is a preserved and adapted version of the past, rather than an untouched relic. What defines Old Jaffa is not simply age, but stratification. It is a city built upon itself. Each stone may belong to a different century, and this hill has witnessed thousands of years of power shifts along the eastern Mediterranean coast. Just outside the old city walls lies Jaffa Port. It is a natural harbor, partially protected by offshore rocks, which made it usable long before the construction of modern deep-water ports. In antiquity, large ships would anchor offshore, and smaller boats would ferry passengers and goods to land. For centuries, this was a maritime gateway, linking the Mediterranean to the inland hills. Today, Jaffa is no longer a major commercial port. It functions mainly as a fishing harbor and marina, and has become part of the city's cultural and leisure space. One architectural detail caught my attention. Along the seaward side of the old walls, some buildings feature projecting, enclosed wooden balconies. These outward-facing balconies are reminiscent of those seen in Valletta, Malta. The combination of limestone facades and timber-enclosed balconies overlooking the sea creates a distinctly Mediterranean maritime character. Such elements are both practical and aesthetic, expanding interior space. while allowing views toward the harbor and the street below. In a region shaped by centuries of maritime exchange, architectural ideas often traveled along with trade routes. Jaffa port story is ultimately a maritime one. It reflects thousands of years of navigation, commerce, and shifting control along the eastern Mediterranean. And just like that, it was time to head to the airport. If you are flying out of Ben Gurion Airport and returning a rental car, one practical piece of advice: allow plenty of time, ideally around 4 hours before departure. First, the nearest gas stations are not directly next to the terminal area. You may need to refuel some distance away before returning the vehicle. Second, the rental car return area is not located right beside the terminal, where cars are picked up. After returning the car, you typically need to wait for a shuttle bus to take you to the passenger terminal. That alone can take time, especially during busy travel periods. Once inside the airport, the departure process in Israel includes an additional layer of security procedures. Before proceeding to standard security screening, passengers undergo a security interview. Based on our experience, the questions can be more detailed than those asked during arrival immigration. After the interview, a sticker is placed on the back of your passport. Only with this clearance are you allowed to proceed to baggage screening and the secure area. The system may feel thorough, but it reflects the airport's emphasis on layered security. With the car returned, the interview completed, and the final security checks behind us, it was finally time to leave. From the desert to the hills, from the lowest point on earth to the Mediterranean coast, this journey through Israel had come to an end.
If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or any comments, please leave it in the comment section below. If you don't like it, share it to your friends. I'll see you next time.